Yeah, we're cranking right along.
Sweet.
Sweet. Well, we got Kristi Miller here.
Hello.
Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely.
It's been a hard process trying to get everything lined up, as it always is with us for some reason.
Yeah, well,
I blame Ryan.
it's probably my fault.
Everybody's got a
But Ryan
life.
McVeigh's here again. But yeah, thanks for coming out. We're going to talk about a couple things before we kind of introduce you a little bit and talk
Okay.
about what you're here for. But basically, you know, the Gunnison is dropping. I don't know if people have been seeing that. You're in CB, so that you've seen the east
Yep.
right there. It's starting to green up a little bit and drop. But I believe it's peaked. I believe the Gunnison has peaked.
Sweet.
I don't know. No, you think it's going to keep going?
Well, she lives up in the Elks. You can see all the snow.
I haven't, it's interesting because I'm not watch the levels kind of person, as far as I never have been, like get on the computer and check
Yeah.
the flows.
Right.
Oh, I check
But-
every day.
Yeah, exactly. So there's people
every,
like you
couple
and
hours.
people like me, and I've just not been that person. But yeah, I live up there, and I just, the temperatures go up and down, and
Yeah.
there's so much snow up there. We have friends that live at Irwin, and they still have for sure
Yeah.
3 feet of snow at their house.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think it's
Do
peak,
you,
but I
do
could
you
be
have
wrong.
a peak prediction if it is going to go further?
It probably, it's funny. I've been thinking about that. Not really too much. I'd say in the next week, but an actual day.
Or
Today
or
is
just
Wednesday.
a CFS? Would you know that?
Oh, no. I don't pay attention to numbers. I'm I'm a color and what it looks like kind of person. I'm just
Yeah.
a little different that way.
Just watching the graphs, it looks like it's peaked.
Yeah, so it could be.
but-
So that's, I'm like the see what the weather is by walking outside kind of person.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Chip thought it peaked like 3 weeks ago,
okay.
and I was like, nah.
And I've
Yeah.
heard people say, "Oh, it's going to peak. It's going to be 15 more days before it peaks." But does anybody really know? I don't know.
I mean, like I said, you're the one that's
Eventually it does.
you're looking at the Elks. There's still so much snow. like
Yeah,
you
there's
said.
a lot of snow. But, it's going to, yeah.
It's going to do what it's going to do.
Okay, so I'm guessing in the next week. I'm very unspecific.
But basically, as of now, there's not much fishing going on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Still tailwater fishing. Down south where I'm at a little bit, there's been some fishing. Not going to say where, but there's been some
I've
clear
heard
water,
that. I've heard that.
and it's been fishing pretty good.
Sweet.
But yeah, I was asked the other day actually when I was in town. Oh, you been fishing? Oh yeah, definitely. Where you been? South.
I forget.
Okay. And they didn't press any harder, so I was like, all right, I don't have to say much
They
more.
could tell.
But yeah, in my opinion, I think it's coming down. I think we've kind of hit that, and hopefully here in the next couple of weeks,
Well, I hope you're
We'll be
right
floating.
because we
I hope so,
want
too.
to fish.
money wise.
I think it's just wishful thinking on your part.
Yeah, it might be. Who knows?
I know. I've been feeling a little bit for like the guides because when you're guiding, you just want to get out on the rivers. And for me, it was a little torturous going out on ponds and lakes. And,
Oh yeah, especially during high
I
water.
just only like moving water. So,
Yeah.
but you're so grateful to have them when you have this situation going on so that you're not out there going, oh, let's see if we can find you a fish. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
So,
Luckily, we do have a little bit of tailwater action, and we
Yeah,
can get people
absolutely.
out. And
Oh,
we
yeah,
have some clear creeks
absolutely.
here and there, but
yeah, and the Taylor, I love the Taylor.
yeah,
It's
Because it's
special.
just, obviously they're changing the flows.
the mic up. Remember
Obviously.
how you were talking about that before the show?
Well-
Like, I need to get closer to the microphone.
My headphones are so loud.
Oh, well, turn your headphones down. You thought you're just ripping over there. You're like, I'm talking very clear and loud right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I just love the Taylor because obviously they change the flows and stuff like that, but it's so much, it's clear. I mean,
Yeah.
I love
It's fishable.
passing by the Almont, and anytime you see two rivers converging like
Right.
that, it's so fun to just
Right.
see that difference in quality of
You
color.
get chocolate milk coming
Yeah.
down and then clear river
But that
meeting
being
into
said,
it.
that water is cold. It's still kind of early. I mean,
They're pretty lethargic right
yeah,
now.
Yeah.
I know. I kind of got
Yeah.
worked the other day. I was like, but anyway, you get out there.
So you've been
and-
out fishing then a little bit?
Yeah, a
That's
little
good.
bit. Yeah, I fished the Taylor a little bit, and it's not much. I mean, I don't get out as much anymore just because I've got 2 kids and I ride my bike, and I was so obsessed with fishing for like 20 years that
Right.
now for me, I love to get out, but it's not what I do as much to get what I need for me, which is exercise.
Right.
Yeah.
And
where
like the wind in my face.
Oh wait, you don't fish for your cardio like I do?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know. I do have great memories of the Taylor. So the Taylor for me is the place that I had my aha moment. And I used to, and meaning like, I get it. I bet there's a fish right there. And it's just amazing. I mean, I can remember, throwing this fly in the dry and being like, there's a fish right. I know there's a fish right there.
Isn't that cool when you get that?
Yeah. And so anyway, I used to, get so into when you talk about cardio, I just loved going from hole to hole, that pocket water, and being like literally the water up to like an inch below the top of my waders and the biggest smile on my face because it is such a great workout. It's so invigorating.
Sure.
So the fact that I don't fish as much anymore just means that I haven't been going enough to get reminded of how much I love it.
There you go. That's a good way to think
yeah,
about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but anyway.
Well, let's talk about who you are now, what you do now, what your position is for Parks and Wildlife. You don't have to go into too much with it if you don't want, but just kind of, we want to run a little bit of a timeline.
Yeah. So as far as what I do now, I work...
Kristi Miller.
Yes. My name is Kristi Miller. And I've been working at Roaring Judy Fish Hatchery as a fish culturist, AKA fish hatchery technician for about, I guess it's 8.5 years now. And that's crazy because time flies.
Time does fly.
Yeah. And let's see, before that, I was guiding on and off for, about 10 years or so. And I was pretty obsessed with fly fishing. I think it was about 10 years.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. But yeah, I did work actually also in the same position I have now in the Durango hatchery from 2003 until about 2006. And I had the most amazing situation ever where I worked 9 months on, had full benefits, and I got the fall off. So I would like cook at elk hunting camps and stuff and just hunt and fish.
Right.
So I used to do a lot of duck hunting and waterfowl hunting.
That's what I'm talking about.
So it was pretty awesome. And then they told me they were going to change my job to year round, and I was like, you know what? I think I got to go.
Yeah,
and
time
so
to go.
I actually left this permanent position and traveled for several years, and some of that included some great fly fishing down in. So love saltwater, as I know Ryan does. And man, that's one of those things that I'm like, wait, how long has it been since I've gone now? So that's on my list to get back to. But yeah, so, and then before that, the fly fishing thing is, when that started, and just super passionate about that.
That's awesome.
Obsessive, like we
definitely.
are. That's what we get.
Wait, so where are you from originally, Kristi?
Wisconsin.
Okay, so you're from Wisconsin.
I am. And it's funny because I tell people a lot working at the hatchery, I'm the one that gives up the tours there basically because after being a fly fishing guide for 10 years and then now raising fish, I could literally talk about fish for like a week straight.
Exactly.
And so I'm the one who has the most to say, and I happen to just be a passionate person. So I like what I do in general. Where am I going with this?
I mean, you're who I would want to do a tour with.
I have no idea. Yeah, so sorry.
I have something to bring up.
Yeah.
I got to nerd out for a minute.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have to harp too hard, but I did hear from a little birdie sitting right next to me that at one point in time you were married or Mark Engler.
That's true. He's my ex-husband.
I had to bring that up. I'm sorry. But Mark Engler is the inventor of the WD-40 fly, correct?
Absolutely,
Sweet.
yeah.
I had to clear that up. I was like, man, that's kind of cool.
I mean, Mark is just an amazing person, and I would never have anything bad to say about him. People have relationships, and they do and don't work. But,
of course.
He just, the reason we ended up together is because I was just so taken aback by his knowledge and his passion. And I remember one of the guides that also guided there, he was like, I'm so jealous of you because you get to go out
I want to
him.
be with Mark Engler.
I
want to date him.
Or he just wanted to spend time with me.
Right.
And so I would literally go on his guide trips with him just because he was psyched to have me around. And I was kind of an up and coming guide. And he's like, yeah, she's learning. So I would literally just spend hours. That's the funny thing is that, well, anyway, I won't go into that.
We can go back if we need to.
But anyway, my point is that I've had some amazing mentors.
Right.
And I will absolutely 100% admit that sometimes as females we get opportunities that other people might not get. And that was being able to learn from some of these people just because I'm a girl and they might be psyched to have me around. But I
get that, yeah.
Yeah, so to be able to learn, you know, so that was it was wonderful. Yeah,
that's awesome. I had to bring it up. I had to nerd out just for a minute.
Well, I'm happy, and he's doing great. I'm happy for him. So.
That sounds like it. But so growing up, were you into fishing? Were you into hunting and all that? Did your
I think
family
that's
do
where
that?
I was going to go. So I have 2 older brothers, and I was the only kid in a neighborhood of 14 boys. So that's why I've ended up the way I am, which I'm very grateful for. You know, I loved it. I'd never wanted it to be any different. But we would go out and fish, and it wasn't really because my family was passionate about it. It was just because that's something to do when you're in Wisconsin and it's humid in the summer and you're surrounded by literally, you know, La Crosse is on the Mississippi River and surrounded by lakes and stuff. We would go out on a flat bottom boat and we would fish. And I remember not loving it because I'd be like, oh, I gotta pee, you know, and being the only girl. But I was fishy from the beginning. Like I would catch the most fish and I didn't care.
Were you fly fishing or were
no,
you
we
doing
were
a lot
just
of spin fishing?
Totally, it was like sunfish and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so it's totally panfish. Yeah. I didn't get into fly fishing until on my own later. And so that was like when I was about 23.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
Oh, so you're touched from the get-go. You know,
I believe I had the juju. Yes, I did. And I didn't care. But again, like I said, I just tend to be like, okay, sure, what up? You know, whatever, I'll do this. If I'm going to be here, I might as well have fun.
Right.
So I just did embrace it.
That's awesome.
And but yeah, and then when getting into it on my own, I moved to Colorado in 1993.
Okay.
I was 20 years old, and I remember just having it just hit me in the face, like, wait a minute, these rivers form these canyons, and you know these rapids. I got into rafting,
right?
And I was like, wait, I grew up on the Mississippi River. Like, this is a river too, you know? I mean, it just redefined what river meant to me. And then I saw river runs through it, and that might sound cheesy, but that's literally what, and Brad Pitt, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and it
so dreamy.
It got me. Yeah, I mean, seriously. No, but
that's a hot Brad Pitt though.
That was one of the better ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And that one and Legends in the Fall, you know.
That's my favorite.
But yeah, so that's really what got me into wanting to learn to fly fish. And because it was the art and the zen and the artistic, the cast, basically. Definitely. It was about the cast.
I did hear you have a beautiful cast.
Oh, thanks.
That's coming from right.
When we were first getting you on, I was like, man, Kristi's got one of the smoothest strokes I've seen. And I remember it was up at Taylor Challenge, and you were casting for the kids. And I was like, dang, that girl can cast.
Oh, that's nice to hear, because sometimes I'm like, I might have lost my casting.
I don't think you can lose that.
Yeah,
I think you can, but I tell everybody, I'm like, man, I got a shitty cast.
Again,
but I can get it there, right. But it's a terrible looking cast.
Yeah.
Well, you should have seen me and Cameron on a flats boat in the wind. That's where it comes in.
I was telling my husband, I mean, oh man, there's nothing more humbling than being on a flats boat in the wind. And then having the fish that you're just having dreams about, like tailing in front of you, and you just throw the most terrible cast ever. It's just
it doesn't unfold.
You have
just
to
crumples.
love it. Yeah, but again, well, thank you so much for that compliment. And again, I credit that to the people that I learned from.
Right.
I mean, I learned from some of the best fishermen. You know, there's so many good fishermen. But honestly,
what kind of mentors did you have?
Well, you know, one of the things that stands out for me. Guides.
I mean, obviously Mark, but
yeah,
just the guides around you.
The guides in general. I mean, they were my buds, you know. And when I first went to Alaska in 1996, I was. This is what helped me to be able to cast a tarpon, you know, and those big guys, because when I showed up there, it was the Kings were running. I mean, first we built the camp and stuff and created that, but like. The Kings were running. So I literally learned to cast a fly rod with 12 weight rods with I think it was a 24-foot sink tip leader. And I mean, and then they'd be windy, and then you're throwing this like, I don't know, 2 to 3 inch streamer. So doing something called the duck and chuck when it's windy, and you're just literally like, because I've gotten hit in the back of my head before.
Oh, it'll bring tears to your eyes.
It'll knock you out, I swear.
And so that was just such a cool way. And then the season progressed, and then we, so 12-weight rods, that's so awesome. And then going down to, then we go down to 8s. And then, of course, we'd have our trout rods for the dollies and the trout. But so that was really cool. But one thing that I remember, and for people listening that are like, what is wrong with my cast? I can remember the day when I was new to Duranglers down in Durango, and go out with those guys, awesome guys. And I was just sitting there fishing with a couple of the other guides at the end of the day, and this guy named Rusty, buddy of mine, I haven't seen in years, but I remember him being like, hey, nice cast, but if you just stop right here. And it really, really helped me I'll never forgot it. That. And I passed it on to so many clients because, he told me, like so many people tend to do, is that you want that cast to go far. And so you bring your arm down too far. And, to really end that cast. Stop it high and then release it. That really, really, I was super appreciative of that.
Right. Definitely.
Because he gave me, I guess
and you weren't guiding at this point yet. You were just fishing with them.
I would have that season. I was that season.
Okay.
Or I would have eventually. That was when I first got there. But so I don't know. I think being a female, I think he probably was more likely to offer that advice to me than maybe another guy that he might be like, oh, he probably didn't want to hear what I have to say. You know what I'm saying?
No,
definitely.
That makes.
I think it
sense.
can go both ways too, because I've definitely seen girls, have kind of been using guides, for that. And it's been interesting to see that. And I've done that with guys too, where I'm like, oh, I'll definitely help them out. Oh, I'll definitely help you out as a girl too.
Yeah.
But then you see a different perspective from each sides, and it's different. You know, it's hard getting into that and being able to teach that.
Yeah.
And take that upon somebody.
Right. And do you think it was you being a woman, or you think it's just you're a highly approachable person as well?
I really don't know, to be honest. I mean, I have a feeling, knowing this guy, Rusty, I have a feeling he would have told anybody, because I was a new guide and I was showing that I didn't know it all. I mean, I remember there was a girl that came in before me that literally had this ego, and she said, I can outfish Mark Engler with one hand tied behind my back, and everybody's yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And so I just went in going, hey, you know what? I don't know much. I have know enough to help people out, but like anything that you can teach me, I will just totally take in.
Right.
So yeah, maybe I was approachable. Maybe he would have said that to anybody, because I think he would have, those guys are great about helping out younger guides, and they all started there. So I don't know, but I do know that I have gotten, no question, opportunity to even go down there in the first place. I was approached by one of the owners of Duranglers to come down because they needed a female guide, and that has to do with kind of,
why did they need a female guide?
Well, it didn't need / wanted. It was just early, and women have been around for a long time. But I mean, even I used to do a triple take if I'd see another woman on the river, and clearly that's not the case now.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, hey, we could really expand our market if we have a female guide, because you might be less intimidating for some of the clientele, or especially other women, to try to get women in. So that was why they said, hey, would you come down here? And I honestly don't know if they had a female guide before me, probably. But it just was the reason that I got invited there.
Right.
I wouldn't have got invited if I hadn't have been a female. So I definitely know that I was invited to also be a guide in Crested Butte. That was the first place I ever guided, up at Dragonfly Anglers. Earlier I became obsessed with fly fishing, so I was out there a lot, so I was able to pass on knowledge to beginners.
Right.
But I might not have been able to break into it just a couple years into fly fishing if I hadn't been a female also.
Right.
But then I was there, and then it's, so... Yeah,
well, I mean, since we're talking about female guiding, did you ever get feedback from clients saying, like, you know what, this is really cool having you as a guide. You have a way different take on, fly fishing and guiding than any male guide I've had before.
Yeah, absolutely. And some women would just say, I just like being with you because you make me feel more comfortable. But there's no question that I take a different approach. I mean, I just like we talked about with, checking the numbers on the flow.
Yeah,
I see things differently. So I'm a really,
you can tell.
I'm a really intuitive person.
Right.
And so I And I'm really into connecting with people. So when I'm out there, when I was out there on the water with people, I can feel the energy of other people, and I care about it.
Right.
So that might be the difference, is that, and I've got to say, this is the coolest thing that ever happened to me. But one of the guys that I guided in Alaska, he said to me, I've been all over the world, and I've had lots and lots and lots of guides. And he actually told me that I was the best guide he ever had.
That's awesome.
And
that's a huge compliment.
It was unbelievable to me, but I know the reason why. And the reason is because I'm so sensitive to feeling what other people are feeling that I could tell what my client is wanting or not wanting. And I care about it. So when I can feel them getting restless and going, oh man, the fish aren't here, like, why don't we go somewhere else? I would be like, hey, the fish aren't here, why don't we go somewhere else?
Just a little chill there, because I mean that's how I talk about it. It's the same way I feel, and I think we've lost a lot of that in guides. Because it's quick, easy money. You're on the river, you're off the river, you're done. Cool, I'm outdoors, I'm doing what I love. But a lot of people have lost that teaching ability, that being intuitive, feeling what their clients want, and being able to actually get involved and feel that kind of emotion with them.
Well, and making it about the client, not about the fishing.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's pros and cons to that. I mean, I also taught women's fly fishing classes for a lot of years, and I loved it. Because I was out there going, okay, ladies, give me a break. Like, women traditionally have been like sewers, and, we can do that needlepoint and stuff. I mean, so why in the heck do you think that you can't tie a fly on? So how about we do this? How about we empower you to know how to do this stuff, so that when you go out with your guy, you can each have an amazing time on your own, and you're not feeling guilty because he has to interrupt his time to come over and tie your fly on, and then you break it off again 2 minutes later. Right. You can do this. And so because I was such a teacher, and I just am a teacher, the downfall to that was that I didn't really get that many, even after guiding for a lot of years, I didn't get the clients that were really great fishermen that you could take out and be like, man, this guy's only guiding me or hiring me because he's got money, and he can, go out and really kill it. I didn't really get those people as much because I was such a good teacher.
Right. And
so, but that's fine. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it does get a little like, man, it'd be nice if I didn't have to just, it always be from the very beginning every time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So you were particularly good with never evers and
and
like
really
that.
Good with kids.
Right.
And but I mean, I guided tons of men, way more men. Of course, like in Alaska, I mean, I would get guys that would say, they had to be open. They wouldn't even get put with a chick.
Right.
And so the guys that own fly shops or that own these guide businesses, I mean, they're like, their personality, they're really good at interpreting people. So they're not going to they want the client to have a good day. So they're going to put them with the person
that fits them
But
best.
I would sometimes, I definitely had clients that would be like, all day you could tell they were closed. And so we didn't have a great day because they were just like, everything's my fault. Of course they're going to say that.
You got to blame the guy. You always blame the guy.
But but then I'd have guys that would be like, all of a sudden we're bringing kings in, and they're just like, oh, well, we weren't sure about you, but now we can see you really know what you're doing. And I love that they admitted that to me, that they were like, yeah, we weren't sure about you, but now, look, we're catching fish, and now we're just having fun. And that awesome. It was really cool. I mean, yeah.
So can we go back to Alaska a little bit?
Yeah.
Where were you at in Alaska?
So I was on a river called the Connecticut, which is about 100 miles south of Bethel, basically complete west coast, right on the Bering Sea.
Of course.
So this river was, when I first worked at the camp, just as a camp hand, so first I worked there as a camp hand, and that's when I talked about learning to cast. And that was in 1996. And Alaska West, I don't know if I mentioned that, but and that camp was half a mile upstream from the mouth of the Bering Sea. When I went back in 2001 and I guided that, and again, like I feel like, opportunity to go back to the place I learned to cast a fly rod and then guided 5 years later. Yeah. I know that's because I'm special. A female. I mean, I do know that I got that opportunity 5 years after learning because I had the experience, but also because, they wanted to crack into that market. But So when I went back the second time, we were 7 miles upstream from the mouth of the Bering Sea. So it was a really amazing experience because we could drive our jet boats. I had a jet boat.
Did you get a 6-pack license and all that?
No,
or
you
at
didn't.
At the time, you didn't
Need it. I don't even know if they do. I don't even really, know. If it was
here's
just
a jet
too small,
boat, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just too small. I don't know
Yeah.
what the requirements are for why you do and don't need it. But yeah, we didn't then. And I just, I was coordinated enough being a chick that grew up with all these boys that I could drive those jet boats with those motors that the jet. I mean,
I've wrecked a jet boat.
I loved it. But
you wrecked the jet boat?
Oh yeah. So I worked up the Queetlet River just above where you guys were.
Oh, okay.
And I wrecked some jet boats.
And you were working on fish population stuff, right?
Yeah, I was doing salmon conservation. But anyways, it's not about me. I know jet boats. It's fun.
Yeah, I've definitely sucked some gravel up and have been. And, you have humbling moments. I mean, the thing that was I only guided there 1 year. And I think, the main reason for me is that I like variety. I like to try things. I like to prove to myself that I can do it. I also like bugs. And so the reason I'm a bug geek, like, you're talking about being a geek, and I just knew that I wanted to experience that and see if I could do it and see that I could do it. And I just knew that my passion was where the bugs hatch and where they're actually eating bugs. And you're not tying flies that look like rotting salmon flesh,
right.
But
I was curious of that too, kind of just to stick on Alaska for a minute, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, what were you normally fishing? I mean, you said you obviously started with a 12 weight and then kind of work your way down, but a lot of nymphing or swinging bugs or.
I mean, no, not bugs.
You're swinging
meat.
Yeah.
Well, you're swinging streamers.
Right.
Okay. So basically,
I still call them bugs.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, yes. So
I categorize it as just bugs or fly fishing bugs.
Yeah. And I guess the reason why I wouldn't say bugs is because these are our earliest clients would come in May, and it was king season.
Right.
So we were basically fishing really high water, and we would try to take them into these side sloughs so that you could hold the boat, literally sometimes standing there holding the boat so that they could cast. And so these fish are coming in from the ocean.
Right.
So what we're throwing, they're imitating little fish.
Yeah.
They're basically, these fish were all
trying to
carnivores.
Get an aggressive strike.
Yeah. And so what we would always do is we would always be like, okay, look, your number one goal here is to make sure that you go home with a box of fish.
Right.
You don't want to go home empty-handed. You have to have proof that you did a good job in Alaska. And you want to have that experience because fishing for salmon is why you're here. And so once we got that, like, okay, your box is full. Can you just relax? And now let's go fish for rainbows.
Right.
And I mean, that sounds crazy because now I raise rainbows and salmon are so phenomenal. So we would still fish for salmon. But the thing is that these rainbows in Alaska are so special. They're so phenomenal. They're wild. And they have the brightest, most amazing leopard spots and that bright, really fat, they almost look like a steelhead.
Right.
I mean, they're so gorgeous. And then there's Dolly Varden. So we would basically be like, look, you've done this, and this is really cool. We've been catching these salmon. But then we would turn our boat around, and then we would row these jet boats like a drift boat.
Right.
And we would be fishing for rainbows, and then we were basically nymphing with a rig that had like a egg pattern and a piece of a flesh fly that looks like rotting salmon flesh. And so then they would just go, oh my, wow. This is really cool too. Yeah. So it was cool that they were able to get that whole experience of everything. And they didn't know they were going to probably get that. They were just thinking salmon. And we're like, but let's show you what we do at night. Let's show you at night what we do. Because we would guide for 10 hours and then we would have an hour to take a shower, and then we'd have hors d'oeuvres, and then we'd have dinner, awesome chef. And then at 9 at night, after we had our guide meeting, then we'd go fishing.
Right.
And so, but it never gets dark. So and I was in my 20s. So you can stay up till 3 drinking beers after.
That's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's tons of antics going on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, super characters and partying every night. And then getting up in the morning and doing it all the next day.
Yeah.
And always
That's got to
fishing.
be weird not having night though, and just partying all night.
Yeah, that's why you don't really need to sleep.
Night in quotes.
Yeah,
I remember, and you might remember this too, Ryan, but I remember in August, and I don't remember the date, maybe it was mid-August, but I can remember, it was like 3:30 in the morning and looking up, probably going out to pee because I drank too many beers, and looking up and going, wow, there's the stars. Like, you forget that the stars exist.
Right.
Because it's always dusk.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, by like maybe late August, you remember that there are stars. And that's really cool, because we would go through these unbelievable times of being out there, everybody after dinner, fishing the gravel bar. I mean, it's so special. It's so fun. It's like ridiculously cool. And there'd be literally the most unbelievable triple rainbow that you ever see in your life, So you see a lot of rainbows, but you don't see a lot of stars.
What's a triple rainbow? What do you mean by that?
Rainbows.
3 rainbows.
Just hooking up on...
No, I'm talking about rainbows in the sky.
Oh, I got you. I was like,
it's just,
I was like, what?
Yeah,
Rainbow?
I was talking about the sky.
I got you now.
So it's,
I was like, you got to explain that one.
It's so rainy, yeah.
Right over my head.
Well, yeah. Well, no, yeah, we didn't fish with
What's
three
a rainbow?
flies.
I've never seen one.
Yeah, so they're so vibrant and they're so amazing. So it's a special place. It's just incredibly special. But I'm really grateful to that place. And I know that the guy that I worked for up there, I know at the end of the summer, it was really interesting. He said something to me that really was surprising to me. He's just like, well, sorry you didn't have fun this summer. And I remember, and I still haven't talked to him about it. I'm going up there next month with my family, actually, and we're going to see him, and I know I'll talk to him about it. But it was just a different ball game for me to go in as a camp hand and be like the most laid back, whatever I'm learning, and then to go back as a guide. I just wasn't as laid back. I was like, this is business. I need to do a good job. I was like under the gun. I was, there was a guy that worked there that was like, look,
there's a little bit of stress involved with that. And just make sure that you can do a good job.
Yeah, so I did have a great time, but I think I came across to him as I didn't, but I did. I was just, I took it seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are the people that are like, I don't know what you're doing here, little missy, but this is a big boys club, and
really?
This is for the big boy. Oh yeah. Yeah, there was one guy that I worked with, and
client
he's a nice
or
guy.
Guide you worked with?
It was, he was like a management type dude. But yeah, he was just kind of like, this separates the men from the boys. And I'm clearly not one of those. But, and it was okay because, he knew that I got hired as a guide, but he was like, you shouldn't be here. And it was okay because I did a great job.
And you obviously did that even remotely take you down a notch? You're like, screw you, I do belong here.
Well, yeah, it did. It intimidated me, and I was like, so that experience, like, to me, is the biggest example of the difference between fear and courage. They say that courage is not the lack of fear, it's having fear and pressing on anyway. And so that to me is exactly what I had to have every day because I was scared shitless. I mean,
right.
I wasn't scared, but I was like, had to constantly talk to myself going, you can do this.
Right.
Because, there were people that thought that, and just kind of, there are always people that kind of want you to fail.
Right.
And so I basically kept going forward, and I didn't get to guide at first, and then there was this guy that got hurt, and from some of the shenanigans, and then I was working every day to fish as much as I can, taking as much information as I could from the guides, and then one day my boss was like, "Hey, you're up. He's hurt. You ready?" And I was like, "Yep, I'm ready." And I went in and I screwed up, and I didn't screw up, but everybody did. Right. And so it was really cool, but it was interesting that he didn't think I had a good summer. I did, but I was serious.
Yeah, it was business.
I had my game face on, and so I was like, maybe he didn't have as much fun with me because I wasn't as lighthearted as I was before.
You just perceived it a different way than you were taking it.
So anyway, I'd be interested to talk to him about that. But
I'd like to hear kind of that too. Yeah. It's crazy going down the list. I mean, you're answering the questions as we go. I mean, it's
that intuition.
Those are some of the hurdles you have to face. Yeah, exactly. Some of those hurdles you had to face, obviously, with guides and a little bit with clients. You talked about that a little bit. what kind of clients did you face day to day? You know, what were these clients? Where were they coming from? Or I mean, do they fish all the time? Are they all over?
Well, it depends on where you're talking about. So if you're talking about Alaska,
you're
talking about Alaska.
Yeah, still in Alaska.
These guys were, when I say guys, mostly guys. There were definitely women. I had one woman. It was awesome. I mean, basically, to answer your question, these people they generally have money because
it takes a lot of exactly.
So in general they had money, but they were passionate. Like, this was for the serious fishermen. That was like the tagline of this place. It was a fly fishing camp. We built the camp. All the platforms were there, but we would have to put up the weatherport tents and the whole camp. And so these are people that are, it's said, they would say, for the serious fishermen, you know? So they would come out there and they'd fish all day and then we'd fish at night. I mean, they were tying their own flies. They were serious. But then you get people that just had the money and were looking for a cool experience. Right. I remember having there was this one couple, and they're the only ones that stood out that were different from all the other clients, and that they weren't those people. They were the people that saved probably for years. They were on an elder hostel trip, and they were doing everything pretty. They're actually from Colorado, and I remember one of the most gratifying days I've had was taking those two down. He was really serious. She was just kind of like, well, she was into it too, but he was a little too serious. And then she was like, oh, this is just amazing. She just really took it all in. And I remember that I was rowing this jet boat and she got into this rainbow that was big, and it was like, this is a really nice fish, and I'm back paddling, just going, oh, I've got to get it, because I think it was hung up, and we ended up landing that fish. And I mean, her husband was actually like not psyched for her. He was kind of like, that should be my fish,
right.
You know, like,
I know that.
Yeah, and so anyway, and that's another story about men and women and couples sometimes. But anyway,
right.
Landing that for her and getting that photo, and then she actually wrote me a poem. She was like,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really cool. It meant definitely so much to
and
her.
It means a lot to you when something like that happens.
It was really cool.
You change somebody's world by that happening.
Yeah.
And that's a good feeling to have.
It was
while
really
being
good.
Out there, guys.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a guest on that's giving me chills so
yeah,
many
right.
times.
I know. I keep I'm like, whoa.
Oh, that's the heart.
Oh man.
And then, another thing that was just incredibly powerful was, I remember, so this river, I had no idea. I mean, I stumbled onto this. Like, this river, when I went up there in 96, this is the river that the guys that are the biggest reps of like Sage and Sims and the biggest reps in the country, they go there. Right. So I got to meet all these awesome guys that were like, oh wait, so I stumbled upon this place where not only can you, I think one of the only places in Alaska where you can catch all 5 species of salmon on a fly.
Right.
So you can get a grand slam on a fly. Like, a lot of places they don't fly fish for them. I just stumbled into this. And so I got the experience of like guiding a grandson who literally had prostate cancer, and his grandfather and his grandson that both got a grand slam in the same day.
Wow.
And to have that experience, was just so,
oh, it's incredible.
So incredible. And so again, you can tell in everything I'm talking about is that generally the people that they would put me with were the people that like wanted that kind of stuff, that wanted that, like, man, isn't this amazing? Aren't we let's just slow down and look around and we're going to catch fish. Absolutely.
Well,
but
and
like,
it just seems like they felt that out of you too. They could give you those people and that you would take care of.
Yeah.
them.
And I didn't get the guys that were like looking at me going, I can't believe she's guiding, because it wouldn't have served either one of us.
Yeah.
Right.
But I did get one. It was really fun. And they would never do this I just got lucky because there was this female client and she had the money. She was like, look, I spent the money to get here. I want Kristi all week. And I got to go with her all week, and it was so cool. Like, I wish I could have kept in touch with some of these people, but it was just great because we had that kind of experience together. And he's like, well, my boss was like, I don't really do this, but I mean, that's what she wants. So that's what she's going to get. Right. She's paying the money. And that was really cool because we just had those moments together. We would drive up these, so after we caught our salmon and we were looking for the rainbows and the dollies, we would drive up what we called schnittly channels. You know, you have your weird speak about where you are.
Of course.
So we'd be like going
Lingo.
up the schnittly channels going like, you need to pay attention. Like you need to keep your speed and you need to like, you're basically feeling your way through here up these small.
Yeah, this is how I recommend
It was
jet
really
boats.
fun. Yes, exactly. So she and I got to do that. And you know, we're literally throwing mouse patterns.
Oh, man.
I mean, just, yeah. So I'm really like, that had a huge impact on me. And that was only 1 year, you know? So I spent way more time down here, but clearly that had a big impact.
Oh, definitely.
And
And you can tell, I mean, you can tell your passion out of
It's
that
special.
place and how,
Yeah.
what it meant to you.
And the fact that, but, you know, that being said, I knew that I didn't want to live there and, you know, for years because it's so far away. And I knew that I wanted to get back to the bugs because I was like, entomology, man. I mean, it's like we're matching the hatch, you know, so that was where.
So there we are at Duranglers,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
So that brought you back.
I came back actually to Crested Butte.
Okay.
And I worked at Dragonfly. And then I got kind of stolen away by Duranglers. And not stolen, but, you know, they offered me a position. And it was one of the guys that I worked with up in Alaska that was now a rep that was like, hey, you know, those guys they're the real deal. The rivers down there are unbelievable. The San Juans are some of the most beautiful mountains in Colorado. I really think you should consider this. And so I did. So I went down there, and it's funny because I always said, you know, I never really meant to leave Crested Butte because clearly it's why I'm back. It's where my heart has always belonged, and I always wanted to settle. But I got lured down there, and then I got to work on the San Juan below Navajo Dam.
Nice.
And so I've just, you know, gotten to fish in some of these unbelievable places with unbelievable
that's
guides.
an interesting place too. I mean, you're going from a place where you're swinging meat, you know, or you're swinging flesh flies.
Well, actually,
to the San Juan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Well, no, what I was going to say is I went, the first season I came back to Crested Butte, then I went down to Duranglers.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I went to Alaska.
Gotcha.
So I guided at first a season at Duranglers and down in basically mostly on the San Juan, which
how
is
long
in
did
New
you
Mexico.
guide for Duranglers.
Let's see. So that was probably like 02 to 06, I'd say. But then once I got a job at the hatchery down there, I was really teaching more the women's fly fishing classes. I was guiding as well. But, you know, there I preferred to fish. I really liked fishing the creeks because they're so special up in the mountains. So I would try to get up.
And everyone wants to go right to the Juan, you know, and fish Texas. And
we
fish all
called that
around
like
there
the bread and butter, basically. It's like that's the bread and butter of the business down there because it's just phenomenal. It's unbelievable. The amount of fish per square mile is unbelievable. And so I just feel really blessed to have learned from all these people that I learned from and I remember when I, you know, went back up to Alaska and I was fishing on, I think it was the Russian River, and I was applying stuff that I had learned, you know, from Mark, like on the tailwaters and going, oh, you got to watch that fish eat. You know, you can't just watch your indicator.
Yeah.
No, you're not watching. Like, you can have that in your peripheral, but you're watching the fish. And that applied, you know, with flesh flies that I tied up in the Russian River. So the San Juan's amazing. And, you know, but when you're a place like that, you're going, it's almost like the salmon in Alaska. You're going, okay, we'll fish the San Juan, you know, because.
But there's other stuff.
But like, if you really want a cool experience, let's go fish for some cutthroats up in the mountains on a little creek. And so I would, and you know, coming back here eventually, I really like taking people to creeks because, in my opinion, that is one of the best places. If you can find a creek that doesn't have too many trees all around, you can teach a person every single fundamental that they need to know about their cast, their presentation, you know, paying attention, being present so that you can see the strike, and
all the while they're catching fish.
They're catching fish, exactly. And so
at least seeing fish as well. You know,
they're missing lots of fish.
Missing lots of fish.
Yeah, but they're getting more opportunities.
That's how you learn too. You know, you got to fail a lot to be able to succeed.
Right. But you get a lot of shots too, which is great.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you know, the evolution of all of our knowledge, I think, is so cool because I remember, like I was talking about the tailor, when I first had that aha moment when I just was like, oh, I bet I could see that fish looking up I remember when I learned in Alaska and they were telling me about fishing with dries, and they would be like, oh yeah, you float them on the surface. And I was like, wait, what do you mean they look up?
Right.
You know, and why wouldn't, because I learned from swinging. So that made sense to me. Like if it's in their nose, in front of their face, that makes sense. Right. But why would they look up, you know? So when I had that aha moment, like on the Taylor in that pocket water, that was just a great learning experience. And then when I got to the point years later, where I actually felt really comfortable on the Gunnison and going, it was because of what I learned on the San Juan.
Right.
Because on the San Juan, it is so wide.
Oh, definitely.
And it looks like it's just a wide river.
Right.
It's just one huge river.
What I learned
with
from
no
those,
structure
what I learned from all those amazing guides down there is that there are so many nuances. And you're looking for this riffle drop and for that, you know, so you're looking for all those little, and those are the things I taught people in my classes is like, you know, it's not just that big hole.
Right.
Like you need to look and see that there's a place that fish can find a little bit of.
You got to fish
in the current.
the 10% of the water,
yeah.
you know, that nobody wants to fish.
Yeah.
Or nobody thinks
and
to
that's
fish.
what's cool about the San Juan is you sit there and go, oh, they're in that spot. It's like, no, every 10 feet is a spot.
Right.
I mean, there's so many riffle drops there that so you learn a lot about like where fish live. And I just feel really grateful and, you know, happy about the way it all went. And basically I just love to go like, oh, where can I go next and what can I do? And one door leads to another door, and it was just really cool the way it all builds on each other.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, on the San Juan, it's so varied. You know, there's just places that people don't know about there. Everybody goes to these certain places, but there's the back bowls. I mean, there's just like
I can't bring up too much.
There's just like this.
We're not asking you
raging. There's just this raging water, and then there's that water that's so subtle that, you know, like Mark would always tell me, if you don't watch that fish, you're gonna miss it every time, because it just sucked in that midge and spit it out before you even. It didn't even move your indicator. Right. And so if you're not paying attention to the fish, and that was what was fun to learn that trick, was to actually, you know, when you say to your client there, and they don't believe you and they don't listen to you, and you're like, look, just next time I say that, will you listen? Yeah. And when they listen,
I've told that story so many times on this podcast.
Yes. And then when they have a fish on and you're like, they look at you like you're some sort of
wizard.
God.
Well, like, you hired me, you know, I know what I'm doing.
But it's because you were watching the fish.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And they're just going, oh, and that's when they learn to trust you. I mean, it's that whole, it's the,
it definitely is
the journey of a day.
I mean, there is a certain degree of trust, and not even a certain degree. There's a lot of trust that comes along with the client-guide relationship. You know, they have to trust you not only that you're going to catch some fish or to listen to you and you will catch fish, but also that you're going to get them down the river alive.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So there is quite a bit of trust there with the client and the guide.
Yeah. And, you know, that actually reminds me of something that, so float fishing and throwing streamers with my buddies which we need to do, like one of my favorite things in the world.
So much fun.
And I learned pretty quickly, at least in Colorado, like I don't like to get out of a boat. And the reason for me is that I want to give them that experience that we've been talking about, which is to teach them. And I just felt like it's so kind of like, oh man, I'm trying to tie on a fly while I'm, you know, trying to keep the oars between my legs and, you know, or like under my knees. And, and I just, it took away from the experience for me. I'd rather go do it with my buds than have to do it along. And, you know, probably maybe that would have changed if I stuck with it. But I just found that for me, like the walk wading was more of a connected, you're going to take away more from me.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in and play host here.
Yeah, go for it. I'm assuming I know what's coming. But
So obviously, Cameron, you most of your guiding is done 90% from a raft.
Yes.
How do you agree or disagree?
You know, I was just thinking about it. If I could have a client for a couple of days, it might be different. Mm-hmm. And I've had that, you know, where I have a client for maybe 2 or 3 days, same guy, one guy, you know, and I like to get them on the boat first. I like to teach them about the water, you know, while we're floating down, and teach them little pockets and where to look for fish, because you can cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a lot of opportunity while floating. Like I said, you cover so much ground that, you know, even if you miss a fish here, there's another hole coming right up, you know. And I do a lot of teaching off the boat before we get in the boat, you know, hey, this is what we're looking for. We're working on this. We're going to do this mend, you know.
Oh, which is a great
idea. And then
idea. As
we're going down, you know, we have opportunities where we can stop and, you know, work on it. I got to stop real quick. Let me work on that cast.
Yeah.
Oh, let's work on this mend a little bit. Let me show you how to do it. And then if I can, if I have that, like I said, if I have them for a couple days, then I might, hey, let's go do some walk wading. There's a great spot that's been really good. We can apply a lot of this to, I almost do it. And it can go vice versa too, where you take them walk wading, then put them on a boat. And when you stop that boat, you can go, look, treat this as if we're walk wading right now. Yeah. We're anchored up, fish this hole just as if we were walk wading. So it can go both ways. It is very hectic on a boat. There's a lot going on. You can see people get flustered really quick because you're doing stuff, you're rowing, you're trying to tie knots, you're dodging rocks, don't follow the boat, you're grabbing people, you're doing a lot of babysitting at one point in time. And it's definitely hard to manage. But the boat is my bread and butter. It's just, and it's one of those things where it's just like, this is how I like to do it. I like the drift. I like being able to teach that drift out of the boat. And I get a lot out of working the boat, where I'm putting them in these spots and I'm, working that boat behind an eddy and be like, all right, see that little pocket across there? Here's what you need to do. High stick this.
And you're covering water. Like, I really feel like if I had maybe not just guided in the summer, if it wasn't so seasonal and I was like not sort of later in my career, if you will, I probably would have become the same way. I have a feeling, because it's kind of like what I was talking about with like the courage and stuff. I mean, it was, it's intimidating, but like all you got to do is just keep doing it, and so I think since people, I didn't have a boat, then I didn't get as comfortable.
Definitely.
But man, I love being on a boat, and I just have a feeling that it probably would have changed. And
I'd love to take you on the boat and go fish with you. That'd be awesome.
Let's go.
I tell a lot of people, guiding out of a boat is like, it's the boat's on fire, you're on fire, everything's on fire.
And you have to like that.
Like, you're just, it's very hectic.
Right? Yeah, and you have to like that. And that's the thing is, I think I come from this place of like the kind of the spiritual, like the Zen side to it, like that let's connect with nature kind of thing. And I think for me, like it wasn't feeling that need for me as much out of a boat, maybe because I don't thrive on that kind of like clearly you like having like a bunch of balls in the air at the same time. And a lot of people do, and so I think I could have gotten better at that. But I think that for me, I just recognized that my strengths came out when I was actually walking with people.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and just like anything else, being on a boat, guiding on a boat, it slows down. It's not always frantic. It does slow down as you get
it's
better
a lot
and more
easier.
experience.
Like I said, if I could have a dream day or dream 2 days, it'd be with one person, where I can work really hard on everything they need focused on and teach them and have that experience, because you get two people on a boat and it's like you don't get to learn a lot about that person in the back of the boat.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not watching them all day. And so
it's different.
And then they want to switch sides, let me get up front, and you're like, oh, now everything's going to be completely different because you've been fishing in the back of the boat for 4 hours. Yeah. And you get up front. And so that's really tough to have two people in there doing it. But if you can make it work, one is great. And
I remember one of the most disappointing float days I had, because I did get out of a boat here and there, but was when I did get one of those clients that could fish. Right. This guy had like 4 rods, and he had like a nymph rod, and he had a streamer rod, and he had a dry rod, and an extra one, and he could cast, and then it was just a really tough fishing day, and it was such a bummer, because I'm like, finally I get one of these guys. You get a stick in the boat. Got a stick in the boat, exactly. And then fishing just wasn't very good.
Right.
It's usually how it goes.
He's like, damn, I needed it to be good today.
Yeah. And, I think that another interesting, I don't know if this is the way it is, I'm just me, but I think the difference between men and women too could be that, I sat there and was like, man, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't it good? We caught a fish. So, the classic jinx is that, or, just...
You caught a fish right off the bat.
Yeah. Right off the bat. We get in the boat, and he catches a fish immediately.
Like, shit.
And he's like, hell yeah, like this is, wow, this is
you
going to be
haven't
good.
seen this long
and then
enough,
literally,
apparently.
I don't think he caught another fish. And it was just a tough day. And I sat there and was like, man, what did I do wrong? Whereas I think, I don't want to generalize too much, but I feel like guys tend to be like, oh, it was the client, or it was the water, or it was the, it wasn't a good fishing day, or I don't know, or they make up numbers and they say they killed it or whatever. But like, because people, I just am not a numbers person. Right. I always hated it when people would go, oh, how's it been?
We've done some podcasts about numbers recently.
Yeah, have you? Yeah. And, it's just a class.
We're not numbers guys either.
I think one of the things apparently. That, I think you would agree, Cameron, about this is that I try not to ask people like how it's going even because it might not be going well.
And you
for
don't
them.
know how they are perceiving it.
Right.
They might have never fished before a day in their life, and they catch 3 fish, and you're like, that was the best day ever. But you ask them, and then something else might come out, or who knows?
Well, and I'm talking about asking people in another boat.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I gotcha.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like I could ask my people, but when you say, "Oh, how's it going for you guys?" they could be like, "Oh, we're killing it,"
man.
and they're not really.
Right.
But then they just made your clients feel like, "Oh, it's not very good for us."
Yeah.
But like you
Must
said,
be my guy.
their perception. So anyway, it's just interesting. I just feel like women tend to blame themselves more or think it's them, and guys tend to be like, oh, I'm sure it's not me.
I heard a great
well, it's never been my fault when the fishing's bad.
I heard a great kind of
so we could probably both go a little more towards the middle.
And it was basically about and I think I'm very hard on myself when I'm on the river, especially guiding, and so this kind of taken into what you're saying, but I'm not out there competing against other guides every day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that, I got to be better than that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's catching more fish than me. I have to be better than him. But the way this quote was basically like, look, I'm not competing against them. I'm competing against myself every day.
Right.
I need to be better. I need to do this. And some days you have off days. I've finally realized that, and I haven't been guiding for long, 8 years. And it's like, but it takes a while to realize, like, it's an off day.
Yeah.
We're doing everything right. The bugs are right. It's just off.
Thank you. Well, and that's the difference, I think, that's sort of wisdom and maturity. So, you've got the young guys that are just going to always act like, oh, everything's great and I'm killing it. And then the older guys, they're going to be more like, I don't need to ask you, I don't need to say how we did, or I don't need to throw numbers out, or I, don't even need to ask you how you're doing. I mean, it just depends on maturity, because some people could be 50 and they're
some
still
people,
having
you don't
to
even
feed
have
their
to
own
say
egos.
anything, and they come by and tell you what's going, and you're like, dude, I didn't even ask. I don't care that much.
And then there's that wisdom of being like, hey, we're all in this together, bro. I mean, come on.
We're all out there doing the same thing, trying to make money and put people on fish and teach somebody how to do something cool.
And we've talked about that too. It's not just about the guide life. It's not just about the fishing. It's also about
the experience.
Yeah. And maybe if they come out of there with a 2-fish day, but they learned a little bit about the river, a little bit about Mother Nature.
Oh yeah.
I call it a victory,
Definitely.
Well, and to me, I mean, my goal was always, and I would tell my people this, and of course I would try to ask them what they wanted to get out of the day, but I would basically give them my spiel, and that was like, my goal is that when you leave here today, you can go fly fishing.
Yes.
Other guides will flat out tell you, and
that might not be their goal, and that's tough.
Well, exactly.
When
and
that's not their goal, that's really hard.
Well, right, exactly. So I like to ask them that, because I like to know.
What do you want to get out of it?
It took enough years, years to figure that out, of like, that would be a good idea to ask. Or, or
what do you want out of this trip?
Or like I said, intuitively, I could just tell. But like, I never really liked, and that goes again back to a good like shop owner / outfitter that knows who they should put you with.
Right.
Because when I did get the guys
That's
that were like,
point.
we want to catch a lot of fish and big fish, I'd be like,
Great.
well, I mean, like, hopefully, but
Right.
you might not have a great, maybe you're not going to come out. So then you should go with the numbers guy,
right?
Who's going to put you in the, I don't like to dredge. And so I'm not, there's amazing fishermen on the Gunnison that I don't tend to catch huge fish, at least around here, because I don't like to fish really deep, and I like to be more interactive with the fish.
Right.
And so, if they might want a different guide, who's going to be like, look, it's about where the fish live most of the time, what they're eating most of the time. So yeah, anyway.
I guess to go back,
I
meant
like to dredge.
Yeah. Well, and you have,
and he
you
likes
catch
to chuck
big fish.
meat. Yeah, he loves to chuck meat.
And that's just, I just came from like, it's just so funny to, the different theories. Like, I mean, the guys down in Durango that I fished with, they're pretty purists. Like, they don't nymph.
Yeah.
It's just like, look, you don't nymph out of a boat. No, you are either throwing drives or you're throwing streamers. And I love that, and that just...
And see, I almost think throwing streamers is worse than nymphing. I'm like, I'd rather nymph than throw a streamer sometimes.
So it's just
it depends on the day.
It's interesting that, the
dynamic with different people.
Well, I mean,
there's
no
dichotomy
between all these different fish.
Yeah, and there's no reason for us to judge,
really cool.
and be like, you're doing it wrong.
Well, and that's one thing I didn't love about that is just like, come on, give me a break.
Do what you love doing.
Yeah,
exactly.
And as long as you're on the river enjoying it, who cares what you do?
We've talked about it a little bit, but going back, this kind of circles back around, but you on the Taylor talking about throwing dries and, being able to do that. I like to tease them up, that's what I like calling it. Hey, like even if they're not eating them, if we're not seeing them eating dries, like let's try teasing one up, let's throw some dries and get them to come up.
Yeah, and there's a hell of a skill set in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
it's tough.
And to just clarify, not to say that those guys down there don't nymph.
Yeah.
What I mean is out of a boat.
Right.
Because that's like we're talking... And I mean out of a boat on a regular free-flowing river.
Right.
Obviously, they're going to throw nymphs out on the San Juan,
right.
Because they're eating midges.
Right.
But I'm talking about like a free-flowing river like the Animas.
Yeah.
So I just had to clarify that.
Did you guide it all on the Animas?
Yeah. So, a decent amount on the Animas and always walk waiting.
I've never fished the Animas.
Ever.
I've heard it's
awesome.
Great.
Yeah, it's an amazing river. It's pretty wild because, that's where I learned to row. And there's so many rocks in that river.
Yeah, it's a burly river.
I loved it. And learning to row from those guys was super fun. And I remember the first time I got on the oars, it was a section that had like hardly any rocks. And I hit the one, And I remember my buddy being like, that was the one rock. And how did you hit it? But I learned how to really maneuver so well because of, there's just these...
technical.
It's a super
so
techy
cool.
stretch of river, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's really special for sure.
And the upper Animas is like really burly,
yeah, and
right?
I never floated that. That's definitely a rafter section.
Right.
Like
okay.
that people die up there. I mean,
right.
it's, but yeah, the lower Animas is, it's beautiful. Yeah, and I enjoyed. I just learned tons there.
Definitely.
Again from
That's
Mark,
awesome.
like I just learned tons.
Well, we might have to bring you out of your. Bring you back into your guiding career. You're gonna have to take us up there and guide us on the Animas.
Oh man, sure. It'd be fun to go there. I definitely.
It'd be fun to go fish with you for sure.
I definitely feel like I'm just. I don't. I'm not as good as I once was.
I'm not as good as I once was. And I just started fishing.
But yeah, I think.
Well, I'll put it this way: I'd love to float you down the river, and you get to fish.
Well, yeah,
and
we
just
can
watch, and we can
3
hang
strikes
out.
you're out.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we can just drink beer and go to.
Yeah, or sometimes it turns into that.
An armed.
So, you got out of guiding. What kind of ultimately influenced that? I'm sure there's an obvious answer there.
Oh yeah, there's a very obvious answer.
And I'm sure I know exactly what's coming, but I gotta ask.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
What kind of
I'm certainly curious.
led you out of that?
My boss said I couldn't.
What do you mean?
So when I got hired at,
At
so
Parks
it
and
wasn't
Wildlife,
the answer that you
okay.
thought you were going to
No,
get.
that was not the answer.
No, you thought it was going to be a family, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. No. I suppose kind of. But I would have probably kept guiding on the side if they had let me.
Right.
Yeah, and so.
I did not expect that answer.
Yeah, I just, I guess if you're really getting deeper, I would probably say, yeah, I was ready to start having just not 5 jobs.
Right.
Because, I did everything. I was a guide. I was a bartender. I'd studied massage at one point. I was a massage therapist. I was a server. I was just I was super stimulated by having all those balls in the air, and I remember my nephew came out and lived with me one year, and he's like, oh my God, you got off this job and then you went for a bike ride and you came home and you're going to that job and you just got, and then you're going fishing. And I was like, yeah, isn't it great? I just loved it. But I was I don't know. I think life just doors open and I follow them. I go through the ones that feel good. And so I wasn't looking for stability. I wasn't looking to settle down and but when I left that job at the hatchery in Durango, I was like, okay, I know that I'm 33 and to some people seems old, and they should be,
No.
I should be far ready to like settle down, but I still wasn't ready for a real job yet. I mean, I didn't even graduate till I was 30. So I was on my own path. And where am I going with this? But when I left there because I wanted to explore more.
Yeah.
And then when I came back into the Gunnison Valley, and I came here specifically, like I was like, okay, I'm 36. I want a family. I'm going to manifest, meet a guy. We're going to have a family. I remember driving past the hatchery, and I was like, wow, now that I'm home and I'm ready to put down some roots and stop drifting like a seed in the wind, I was like, now I could see working at the hatchery. And then I got a job for the biologist here, Dan Brow, as
we've had Dan Brow on the podcast.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. So I was working for him because at some point, when I left the hatchery, I thought, I think I'd rather be a biologist. I don't know if I could be happy in a hatchery for like a whole career. And then I worked for him for 3 seasons, and that was amazing, and I loved it. And I was just like, man, you know what? I am sort of starting to feel like I wouldn't mind something where I'm not working all these crazy hours.
Right.
And I never thought my 20-something-year-old self would be like, what happened to you? You never wanted
What do you mean you're craving structure?
Yeah. And so I just was like, I could potentially, but I didn't even know that job would open up. And after I worked for Dan for 3 seasons, and then I had been helping them out with the kokanee spawn, when that position opened, I was eligible for reinstatement. They all knew me. I was really lucky. It's like, so I just believe that the universe brings to us what is meant to happen. So that door just opened, and I just stepped right through it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh, I need to find a real job. I mean, I didn't even think that existed here. I came back to where I was passionate about living, and that, it just opened up and was like, here, how about this?
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
I'll do that
and
again.
not guiding happened to just be a negative byproduct.
Yeah, and so
of it.
then what happened was that Chip, was like, I think it's in the by rules here that or whatever. I actually worked at the hatchery in Durango, and I guided and I taught classes, and the boss there, I'm pretty sure, just never, he didn't care.
Just didn't know knew
He
any
didn't look
better.
into
Right.
it. He didn't care. And so it's, he just was like, I've been around long enough, so
Well,
I was kind of lucky.
Right. Well,
that
we
I was
still
able to-
talk about your gig in Durango, the one you had, and we're like, how
that
can
gig
I
was
get that
amazing.
gig that doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore?
It doesn't exist.
I keep asking Chip, like, I'm more than willing to step in and work 9 months on the year
Yeah,
for salary.
and yeah, they just changed that to like the truck drivers. They gave it to a truck driver.
I know.
Do you miss guiding at all?
I knew you were gonna ask that. A
There's
little
your
bit.
intuition again.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally, what I miss is being on the river all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go when I first met my now husband. I would like text him from the river, and he'd be on a roof or building somewhere, and I was just like, oh, I have to fish today because I need to know what's going on out there.
Yep.
And that's what I miss. I miss like that I had to go do the R&D and get out there and fish, so that that was like research. So
That's what I tell my fiance. Like, you know what? I just got to get relevant out there.
Yeah.
I don't know enough.
Yeah.
I have to. You don't understand. It's
yeah, well,
R&D.
you need to be up on like what bugs are hatching. So
Yeah.
I miss that, and I miss the clients, but I definitely got a little. Maybe if I would have kept doing it, I would have continued to push myself, because I like to always be growing, expanding. So I probably would have delved more into the guiding out of a boat thing and been like, how can I challenge myself more, and how can I? So, but I don't miss, like there's certain things that can be very like the same stuff all the time,
Right.
saying the same thing.
Right.
Just gets repetitive at times.
Well,
Yeah.
There's monotony to every job anyways.
But yeah, of course, in some ways I miss it, in some ways I don't. I'm just really content, and
That's awesome.
I've just
That's good.
tended to be like, where I am now is where I am now. And so I don't tend to focus on, what I'm not doing anymore. But now I feel grateful that I can just have that regular schedule and just get home to my family and get them into fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So,
I
yeah.
can say I'm really happy you're not guiding. I love standing around the spawning table, spawning
Yeah.
salmon with you.
Yeah.
You're a joy to be out there. You're one of my favorite people in the hatchery
Thank
system.
you.
So
Yeah,
I can
it's
say
awesome.
I'm glad you're not guiding. I'm glad we have you around.
Yeah,
Colorado
it was an
Parks and
amazing
Wildlife.
experience, and I'm super grateful for it and proud to have done that, because, but now there's tons of women out there. And it's funny
yeah.
because, the thing is that I remember this is one thing that my boss in Alaska told me. He was like, Kristi, you could write your own ticket. Whatever you want to do, you do it. Like, go out there and you will be successful. And I had gotten to when I came back here, I was like, man, I want to like have my own women's fly fishing international company. And that was the direction I was going.
Right.
So when I got back to Crested Butte, I had come up with a business, name. And I actually had taken some clients from Durango down to.
What year did you move back to Crested Butte? I'm sorry.
It was 2009.
2009. So you were kind of already a little bit ahead of the curve in your mindset.
What do you mean?
With women becoming really successful guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just knew that I could do it. But the thing is that, I mean, I'm going to sound old here, but like that was before all this crazy internet stuff. I mean, the internet was around, but it wasn't as pertinent as it is now.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and it was also like the recession. So it was, remember, 2008 was the really bad year. And here I am going, oh, well, I've got next year booked in Isla Hobosh. I took clients down a client down to Isla Hobosh, and that was an amazing place. And fished with Sand Flea. I don't know if you remember him on one of the videos.
I know
the Sims video where they're fishing for baby tarpon.
And fished for those at that place. And I had a whole week booked. And I ended up deciding not to go that route. And so I was like right there, in the place where I could do that. And I just had this little talk with myself that was really kind of like a really, it's really easy to romanticize, like, oh, that would be so great, but I had been a drifter for like 10, 20 years. I mean, I really wanted roots, and I was like, you could do that and you would kill it and you would do well, but what do you really want? And I knew that what I really wanted was actually some roots and a community and a family. And so that's
hard to do when you're on the road all the time.
So
fishing.
I chose to actually say, you know what, I'm gonna let that go, because I feel like I've lived long enough to know, and just, I mean, I swear last week I was just thinking, wow, you really could have done good with that. Like,
right.
You could have, but I don't know. This is what I chose, and I don't second guess it, because there's no point to that.
Yeah, you don't look like a person that looks back and has regrets.
And so it's cool to know that I could have, and that other women are doing that. But instead of feeling like jealousy or like, darn it, I wish I would have, I'm just psyched for them, and nice. Just like, I could have been that person, but like, I'm living my dream here, and like, it's pretty awesome to have a stable job where I'm working with fish, and I still get to talk about fish all the time. And then, I get to raise my family, and then I get to be home at 4.
I agree.
Yeah. We're getting old.
I know.
But, I'm just like, wow, I could be off, my kids could be living that life and, everything, but I just don't. And so I'm just psyched for those chicks that are doing that. And I think it's awesome.
I think it's great too. I mean, obviously we love women in the sport and being in and growing the sport. I was actually looking it up last night, and I guess it's about 31% of fly fisher people, I guess, I don't want to say men, are women.
Yeah. Wow.
And it,
really?
I mean, yeah.
That's
I wouldn't have guessed it'd be that high.
It's bumped up in the last couple of years,
That's
but
incredible.
no, it's great. And, I mean, what would you say to a woman trying to get into it now? I mean, you've obviously taught some women classes and, been involved. There's a lot of, just from experience of taking guide trips with women, a lot of them are pretty hesitant to get into it.
And are you talking about women to learn to fly fish, or
definitely.
women that get into guiding?
Oh, well, both.
Yeah,
both. I mean, you can touch on both if you want. We got some time. We can go as long as we want, honestly.
People will be like, man, they just keep talking.
That's what we do here.
Yeah.
Usually we're a little bit more intoxicated when we're doing it. But,
sweet.
So that's why we're like, man, we talked for 3 hours.
We're
nothing.
We're not going to subject.
So we are
to this
talking
madness.
about good stuff
I
here.
will have
So
to pee at some point.
Yeah,
You guys
we'll end it up here.
No, we can keep talking as long as you want. But as far as women that are getting into it, it's kind of like what I said before. Like, give me a break, ladies. Like, I mean, if you want to get into it, get into it. And don't rely on a man. Don't you rely on no man. I mean, that's just like, that's what I've always, like, basically, and my mom would be like, yeah, girl, it's just, and I didn't learn from her, because she always is like, you're so brave. But, no, I would just say, just get out there. I mean, it's just so amazing. And why it's a man's, I just don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe it's because I was raised with all boys. I just don't see why?
Right.
I don't get it. I don't understand. So yeah, just get out there and do it. And it could be with your man, or it could be not. It could be get into it on your own. But there's so many resources. I mean,
there are.
I would just say don't be intimidated, because it's always intimidating in the beginning. I remember when I first started working at the fly shop, and I was like, how am I ever going to learn all these flies? Well, you don't need to know every fly, but the point is, next thing you know, it's going to be like, wow, it's been 20 years and now I know this stuff.
Exactly.
And you just take it one step at a time. So just do what feels right. And as far as women guiding, I mean, they're doing it. Yeah. Well, yeah, I just mean, like, there's always room for more. Yeah. I mean, you can't have too many female guides, because they're just another guide. Yeah. Like, it's like even one of the women in the hatcheries, I remember having a conversation with her, and it was about the difference between men and women, and they, well, everybody sees us differently. And I just remember being like, well, actually, it's you that are seeing you differently. Right. And it kind of blew her mind. Like, she was like, whoa. Because I was just like, I was raised with all these boys, so I don't see myself differently. And I think maybe that can be the hurdle for women, is that it's like, not seeing color. Like, we shouldn't see it. What does it matter? Right. So don't make it a hurdle for yourself. Just get out there and do it and believe in yourself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can tell you're very passionate about it, and it's really cool to talk to somebody who is that passionate. And like we both said, we both got chills, at times when you were talking. That's awesome. I know. I don't even know where to go from here. I mean, we can end it up here. Do you have anything you want to talk about real quick, or any concluding thoughts?
But too much fun having you out. Love having you on, and we'd love to have you on again after you. Just a quick little repeat after you talk to that guy. Oh, yeah. I would just love to hear his opinion on the matter.
Well, and it'll be interesting because he's older now. I mean, we're all older. I don't know what he was thinking. I think he was just like, I just had to deal with some of the guides being dicks, right. But they were nice guys, but they were just kind of like, I think what they saw was like, you're just here because you're a girl and you're getting special treatment, right? And that's okay. Like that's fine, because to some degree they were right. I mean, I did get an opportunity to go there, right?
But you took full advantage of it and proved yourself.
Yeah. So I think
if people could see you now, though, and realize, what was happening then and kind of your process, they might think a little bit differently, from where you've been and now where you're at now, and kind of where you took it.
And just that aging, that compassion of just being like, oh man, I was scared too, like not admitting that he was scared being out on his guide trips. Yeah. Exactly. But the older you get, the more you're willing to admit that, and then you're willing to have compassion for that other person. So I think, that was just, it's that machismo, kind of. It's just like tool time with Tim Taylor.
Well, I remember talking to my fiance when I was getting on. We happened to be talking about you, and she's like, "Well, what's it like for a woman in the hatchery game?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just trying to be her in the hatchery game. I just want to be part of the brown shirts like she is. I don't know. I don't see it that way, Yeah. And you don't hold yourself that way.
Yeah, and I think that's anybody needs advice from me, but just for women is just to like, don't even make it an issue, like you are the same as everybody else. And that's why I feel like grateful for being raised with boys, because if anything, I'm trying to figure out how to be a girl. I mean, I'm just like going, yeah. So it shouldn't, and that's what I think goes on with our crew at the hatchery, is that because I don't doubt myself. Right. And if I have, and I'll ask questions, and I'll admit what I don't know and things like that. But I'll just basically believe that my ideas are as good as anybody else's. And I think that's what we should all do. But women tend to, and if there's one thing I could maybe end this with, is just like, when I would teach my women's classes, I would kind of relate a story. And like I said, being brought up in not only with two older brothers, but a neighborhood of only boys, and I was the youngest. I loved it. I ate it up. I was like, no other girl, like, stay out. This is my turf. Like,
my turf.
And I just loved it. But what I noticed is that girls tend to be taught, and even me within my family, I was taught more to ask. Women are taught ask for help. And boys are taught, figure it out. Take it apart. If you don't know how it works, take it apart and put it back together. And girls aren't taught that. And so even as a girl in that environment, because I was the only girl, I was kind of like special. And so my dad would be like, oh, let me help you. But he would teach me how to like change the oil and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think that's what I have taken away from this whole kind of experience of that and going into teaching women is, and it was actually because I had it at the Durango hatchery. Remember being like, and then I could have done that. Why didn't I do that? Yeah. And so ever since then, I have said like, at least I'm going to try.
Right.
I'm going to at least try to figure it out. And then if I can't, I'll say, look, this is what I did. And, you know, and I couldn't figure out. And then I'll still ask for help. But just give it a try and try to figure it out. So that's what I would say, because girls just aren't taught that.
Right.
And I still have to be reminded. And then don't like blame yourself, because, you know, a girl will be like, oh, I couldn't figure it out. Oh. And the guys will be like, well, I'm figuring it out.
Right.
And
go figure it out.
Yeah. There's no like self-blame for I should know that, because there's nothing we should know, you know?
Yeah. And there's the words of wisdom from Chris.
Definitely.
I think from women to men. Go figure it out.
Yeah, right. I think just to wrap everything up, I mean, real quick, we can conclude it here, but I mean, I think you've given a lot of advice to men and women in fishing and guiding, and a lot of wisdom within that. There's a lot there, and you could tell you've lived so far a very fulfilled life in doing that and following a passion. And like I said, you seem very passionate about it, and it's great to finally have you on and talk to you face to face, because
for sure
we've been trying to plan this for a long time, and it's just, we're very bad at that. And you know, I get nervous when it comes to doing it. I was like, all right, is this really happening? Okay, we're doing it. But I want to, you know, just say thanks for coming out all the way out to Doyleville, and I know that's a drive for you.
No problem.
And doing this for us, and thanks for Ryan for setting it up too. And it's good to have a beer with you, and I'd love to get you on the boat and get you fishing and just have one of those days you talk about where just us, you know, going out and getting some fishing.
Sounds like a date. Right here. Us three on a boat.
Oh man,
we got to make this happen.
Well, and now that my boys are 4 and 5, you can see why I've been busy. They're only 16 months apart. But now I can leave without feeling guilty, because it was a handful for a while there. But yeah, I can get away more.
We'll do a happy hour float or something. Go drink a couple beers and go chuck some meat if you guys want to. I'll row all day. There's one that I'll row for you, chucking meat. Okay, Ryan? You want to huck streamers? Go for it.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Or
so
throw some
wait,
dries.
so you think streamers are bad?
No, I don't think they're bad. I think there's a time and place for streamers.
Yeah.
The way I describe it, and I've described it to Ryan a lot and on the podcast, but I'll go into it a little bit here real quick.
Can't really stop.
Well, the way I think about it, you know, it's yes, you're trying to trigger an instinctual eat. You know, you're trying to get those fish to, you know, trigger that instinct, eat that bait fish.
Yeah, they chase it.
And you need to get in their home, and you need to get them to eat it. It's not so much a chase, it's just that trigger real quick, you know, especially when you're floating down the river. Get in the pocket, get it a couple twitches, you don't see anything, next pocket, you know, and it's like you come to a point where you're like, all right, I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty, you know, like, all right, they're either going to eat it or they're not.
Right. Yeah.
There's not much you can go too much further. There's definitely some technique you can get into. Like, all right, I can make the eat a little bit easier. I can really trigger that eat. But once you get it, it's like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we've talked about it to, I mean, crazy extents, but you know, it's like where
we go on and on.
You get to a point too where you're like, all right, I'm not catching any fish. I'm going to throw on a streamer. You know, it's a fish finder.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to throw on a streamer and get some takes and find a fish. And like I said earlier, it's a battle against myself. You know, if I'm out there fishing, my first instinct isn't going to be like, all right, I need to go find a fish with a streamer.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, all right, I need to work a little harder.
He wants
I need
to figure out.
Yeah, I need to figure out,
Yep.
you know, those bugs.
Right. Yeah.
And I need to find where they're hiding or where they're laying. And so, yeah, it's a fish finder to me. Like, all right, you don't want to figure it out? Here's a streamer.
Yeah. I could see
and
that.
Start pounding the bank, and
I
you'll
feel
see
like
some
it's
fish.
more being engaged with them. Like, I can see it. I want to see them. So
and that's
to
why
me,
I like drives, too.
to me, a dry and a streamer are
Exactly.
very similar, because I'm like,
I 100% agree.
I'm gonna engage. I'm gonna, but I see what you're saying. I totally see what you're saying.
But dries, you can
There's
extend your knowledge so much further than a streamer. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you're on the internet, but looking on Instagram and all these streamers and all these double articulated and crazy looking flies, you know,
Never
you're like,
done Instagram.
you're like, it's like, you know, I'd rather throw a dry, you know,
Yeah.
I'd rather put on a stimulator or a caddis and be
Yeah.
like, all right,
Yeah.
you know, this is a lot cooler for me.
Yeah.
That's
Put
my
together.
opinion on
Yeah.
it.
Time and a place.
Yeah, there's definitely is. You know, if it's rainy out and it's cloudy and, you know, it's like, all right, I can't keep a dry up. I can't keep a hop dropper up. I don't want to
Yeah.
nymph.
Right.
I'll
Well, I
break
think-
out a streamer.
I mean, just to be fair, I would say like absolutely, I agree with you. Absolutely, I would rather be throwing a dry. But if there's not bugs, then throwing
but there's
a
always
streamer.
bugs. That's my thing.
Yeah, but then you're nymphing.
Yeah,
you know?
here we go. Here we go. It's this.
We're gonna cut
this.
this.
It's
last
just a rabbit.
conversation.
Oh
yeah.
no, I'm not cutting this. I'm not cutting this because I've been fighting this on this podcast
But
for
it's just
a
who you
while
are
now.
and what you want to do. And the point
Yeah,
is,
definitely.
like,
I like the
So when
action.
Do what you
when
wanna
I
do.
first got into, I used to fly fish when I was a kid, you know, and I didn't know much. My dad would basically be like, "Here's some flies. Here's how you tie a knot. Go have fun." And they were mainly
cool.
dries.
That's awesome.
And so I didn't know the bugs. I didn't know what they did. I didn't know the purpose of them. You know, I knew they floated, and sometimes the fish would come up and eat it. So when I moved up here, I very quickly learned that doesn't work. You know, it's like you need to think a little bit more. You need to try harder.
Yeah.
And I started nymphing, and I couldn't really get the hang of it. You know, it's just I don't know the bugs still. I don't know how to do it. I don't know the techniques. Go to streamer. I'm gonna
Yeah.
throw a streamer
Right.
on, and it's, you know, I think it's one of those things where you just
So it's where you come. It's where you came from.
it definitely is, and
Yeah.
it's like I said, once you get it,
Because it's
Then
the
it's
opposite
like-
for me. Those guys would take me fishing, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I get to go fishing with these guys." And we're floating the animals. They'd be like, "Well, we're throwing streamers, and it's amazing."
I can't stand it.
Right.
If it's good,
I love
then
it.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm floating some down in the river,
streamer
and it's
fishing
good.
is not a fail safe for me.
No.
You know, it's so
Oh, no.
I enjoy the action. I enjoy the close casting to banks. I enjoy moving fish. I like turning fish into
I've been on
predators, and I
too
really
many
enjoy
boats
seeing how
though
they
where
interact.
guys are throwing streamers, you know, buddies of mine,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not eating it, and they're like, "Oh, it must be the color. Let me change the color." 10 more casts. Oh, I'm gonna go to white now. 10
Yeah.
more casts, and you're like, "Dude, you've done this for a couple hours now, and you haven't seen a single fish. I'm over it.
Right.
You row now.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
You know,
not.
I want to fish.
I'm not rowing you anymore.
Yeah, I don't
unless
wanna,
you change.
I'm not going to row hard for you
Yeah.
anymore because you're not trying. You know,
Right.
you're not trying to push your boundaries,
Right.
push your abilities.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just thinking inside
Figuring
the
out.
box.
Yep.
Oh, must be a color. You know, it'd be
No.
like me throwing one stonefly all day and be like, oh, they're not eating that.
Right.
I'm going to go to a green stonefly. Oh, I'm going to go to a purple. Oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
go to black. And they're still not eating it. There's
Right.
no point.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you're
Yeah,
you're
don't
beating your head against the wall for
don't
no
beat your
reason.
head against the wall for
Yeah.
it. You know, but I like throwing.
I'm keeping this because I've been pushing it real
Yeah,
hard, and
yeah.
I like hearing it from everybody.
Well, and
but-
I like that, and that's what I think is cool about, you know, learning from other people. I mean, I'm always going to learn from other people, and you know, we just all see it differently.
Definitely.
And that's what I think is so cool about it, you know. And I don't like that notion of like it should be this way or
it should,
or it's not purist, you know. And I don't think there should be any shoulds, you know. It is for whatever it is for anybody, is my opinion, you know. But yeah, I mean, if you're really into figuring out what the fish are eating, you can't be against nymphing.
Right.
90% of
No.
what they eat is under the water.
exactly.
I'm not
you know?
against it by any means.
Yeah.
No. I'll nymph, but I'd rather throw. You know, I mean, even with a hopper dropper, you're still nymphing.
Don't get me wrong. I'm counting the days to start throwing double dries on the Gunnison.
On the Gunnison, I threw double dries the other day.
I know.
And it was
Nice.
awesome.
Where? Where was that?
Just south.
I'm kidding.
I know
South.
where it was. I
We all know you.
We'll end it here.
yeah, we'll stop. Thanks,
This was
guys.
awesome.
Thanks for having me.
This was great.
Yeah,
Guided
thanks,
trip,
Kristi. Too much fun.
Fly Fishing Podcast. Thanks, guys.